Grief counselors are on hand at a Prince George's High School helping students deal with the fatal shooting of one of their peers. Good evening. This is CTV News for Tuesday, April 5th. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Denise Douglas. We'll have that story in a minute. But first, with the tax deadline quickly approaching, the state's comptroller is keeping a sharp eye out for fraudulent returns.
Peter Franchot has just announced his office has stopped processing returns at more locations in our region. Byron Scott is joining us with more. Byron?
Yeah, this is a big problem here in Maryland, but also across the country. Now, the state continues on its quest to weed out fraudulent tax returns. Now, over the past 2 months, the Office of the Comptroller has stopped processing returns from 23 Liberty Tax Service franchises due to allegations of possible wrongdoing. Now, the state has added 4 more private preparers to that list, 2 in Prince George's County. Now, you must point out, as of right now, no wrongdoing has been alleged, but the Comptroller's office has come across a high volume of some questionable returns. One is Tax Point Solution Accountants at 1401 Mercantile Lane, Upper Marlboro. One of the offices is where an employee claimed to know nothing about the state's action. The state is still processing your returns.
Yes.
Have you heard at all from the Comptroller's office?
No.
They have not contacted you?
No.
And so what's your reaction to this?
I'm surprised. I don't know who would have made that statement to the controller. We're still filing electronically, so I don't know where this information came out from.
Now, the second preparer in our area is ICS Group on Annapolis Road in Lanham. This was the response when we attempted to speak with someone at that firm. They stopped accepting returns from this office. Is that accurate?
I don't know.
Now, again, no wrongdoing has been alleged. The Comptroller says all of the companies have been contacted. The other 2 locations are being investigated are in Baltimore and Washington, D.C.
Very interesting. Now, what is it exactly that is considered questionable in regard to these companies and the returns?
Well, it could be just about anything. They're looking, though, for inconsistencies. So, for example, if they find a lot of returns that show that some people in a certain area, shouldn't say that, but some people have income that went up significantly one year to the next. If you get a lot of that in one area, then they question it. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but they look into it. And these investigations could take at least a year before they're completed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that information. It has been 9 days since a Largo High School teen was gunned down at the Deanwood Metro Station. Returning from spring break today, students are taking the time to remember freshman Davonte Washington. Grief counselors are at the school to assist students with their loss. A memory wall banner has been set up so classmates can write personal tributes.
Our students are here today supporting each other. They know the staff is supporting them. They have had opportunities to get support and talk about what happened.
Devante was very devoted to ROTC. He wore his uniform on each assigned day, and he wore it very proudly. The kids really enjoyed him. They really respected him as a student, as a leader. He was an independent person, meaning he didn't follow those things that were not, well, I'll say those things that you should not do in class, like talking, moving around. I'll give you an example. When he first came there, he was with his buddies, and I was asking them to stop talking. He told me, he said, "You know what, Sergeant Brown, I'm just going to move my seat so I won't get in trouble." That to me shows maturity. That to me shows me that he gets it.
School officials say at the end of the week, the banner will be given to the Washington family. The funeral service will be held this Friday at First Baptist Church of Glenarden Ministry Center at 3600 Bright Seat Road in Landover. The viewing begins at 9 a.m. The service will start at 11 o'clock.
The House of Delegates approves an overhaul of Maryland's criminal justice system, setting the stage for the negotiations with the Senate over a version it unanimously passed last month. The Justice Reinvestment Act passed the House with bipartisan support yesterday, 105 to 31. The bill would put low-level drug offenders into treatment instead of prison. The measure would also release some offenders sooner and reduce the time parolee violators spend behind bars.
On the street automatically just because they behave themselves behind the wall. Like, that's why we have a parole commission to actually take a look at these folks. I mean, somebody could have committed 10 offenses, had 10 assaults beforehand. You're going to let them out at 25% of their sentence automatically. So the House left that in there. We made it only for very low-risk offenders. My inclination was to take that provision out completely. I don't think that we should be letting people out automatically for anything unless they are non-violent offenders.
The legislation is considered one of the most important to come out of this year's session. Justice reform advocates, along with the Legislative Black Caucus, want a compromise that is closer to the House version before the session ends next Monday. Meantime, legislation that seeks to overhaul how police are hired, trained, and disciplined in Maryland hits a stumbling block, according to the Washington Post. The Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee voted last week to let local lawmakers decide whether civilians should participate on boards that review complaints against officers. Several senators from Baltimore say the legislation should mandate that 2 civilians serve on the panels. The measure was then sent back to the committee, raising questions about whether it will survive with just 2 days left in the session.
Well, here is some more political news. Since his election to Congress in 2002, Democrat Chris Van Hollen has become known as a gifted legislator and budget expert, willing to work across party lines to get things done. Now he hopes to continue that tradition in the U.S. Senate. Rochelle Metzger has part 2 of our sit-down with Congressman Van Hollen.
Like revered Senator Barbara Mikulski, whose seat he's running to fill, Congressman Chris Van Hollen says he's a tireless advocate for all Marylanders.
I do believe that if you look at my record, regardless of someone's race, regardless of someone's gender, I've always been somebody who, first of all, listened, but then took action.
And that means delivering on criminal justice reform.
There are 2 pieces of legislation that are really important, that are bipartisan, that I've worked on. The Smart Sentencing Bill and the Safe Justice Act. And Congresswoman Edwards has not had her name on those. She's not been part of that.
Van Hollen says he supports the Black Lives Matter movement and sees it as a call to action.
I have supported efforts over years to improve police-community relations. I believe in more accountability and more transparency. I think police cameras will help.
The top Democrat on the House Budget Committee, Van Hollen, calls the recent day-long shutdown of Metro's train system a symptom of gross neglect.
Now we've got somebody in charge that hopefully will help. I'll tell you what will not help. Republicans want to cut the $150 million a year federal contribution to Metro. That's something I worked very hard and fought to get as part of a bipartisan effort. Now we're fighting every year to make sure that we protect that investment, because it would be hugely damaging to the system if the federal government sort of pulled back on that commitment. So we need to protect that. We need to look for ways to expand it. We need to maintain oversight.
At the congressional level, he says he's working to reduce sexual assaults on college campuses.
Doing everything we can to incentivize colleges to be really both vigilant and also create accountability systems. At the federal level, it's also been raised in the context of the service academies. And so I've been part of an effort, a co-sponsor of legislation, to essentially take some of those cases out of the chain of command.
As the race for the open Senate seat heats up, Van Hollen says he thinks there are many important differences between himself and opponent Donna Edwards.
While we may have similar voting records on many issues, there's a dramatic difference when it comes to actually leading the fight on these important matters. And sometimes that requires working across the aisle.
Van Hollen says if Maryland wants to continue in the traditions of Senator Mikulski, then it needs someone who will fight and get results for the state and its residents.
It's really important to the state of Maryland that we have some continuity in that effort. I've also been beating back a lot of the Republican proposals. I led the fight against their efforts to roll back parts of Social Security and privatize Medicare and disinvest in our schools. But I want to get on with the next round of business, which includes building an economy that works for everybody, raising the minimum wage, equal pay for equal work, paid sick leave. I was in Annapolis pushing hard at the state level for that, just as I'm pushing at the federal level.
The Maryland primaries April 26th. Early voting runs the 14th through the 21st. Tune in tomorrow when we sit down with Democratic Senate hopeful Congresswoman Donna Edwards. There are just 3 weeks left before voters cast their ballots in the primary election, and a new poll from the Washington Post and University of Maryland shows that some are divided along party lines, or racial lines, I should say, when it comes to the Democratic Senate seat. Among all likely voters, Representative Donna Edwards leads Representative Chris Van Hollen 44 to 40%. When it comes to likely black voters, they favor Edwards by a 3-to-1 margin. More than twice as many white voters support Van Hollen as African Americans. The Senate seat is being vacated by Senator Barbara Mikulski after serving 30 years in that position.
Well, this is the coldest April the D.C. area has seen since 2007. Temperatures overnight dropped into the 30s, and unfortunately, you can expect the same tonight. Our CTV Sonia Shrivastava is standing by in New Carrollton with more.
Bring out the winter coats.
It's cold out here. This weather don't know what it want to do.
These unseasonably cold temperatures have Washington area residents a little confused.
I put on several layers and make sure I was bundled up real good and had my good wool coat out.
A little hot chocolate is keeping Serena Crumlin warm. She admits she's not prepared for this weather.
It was kind of surprised because it was like hot last week, and now it's real frigid this week.
You wish you had worn more clothes?
Yeah, I wish I wore a long sleeve shirt instead of a short sleeve shirt.
This is one of the chilliest Aprils in nearly 10 years, and what's making it feel colder than it is, the 20 to 30 miles per hour wind gusts. LaDon Bethay found out the hard way. He could barely stand still as he waited for his bus.
I didn't even know it was going to be this cold. I'm not even prepared for real.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I see you don't have a jacket on.
Yeah, I only got a hoodie. This ain't nothing compared to what I should be having. Got thermals on, double socks, everything,
Double socks?
Double socks.
And then there are those who like this weather.
Love it.
Really?
Love it, because when it gets real, real hot, y'all going to be wishing it was cold, so you got to enjoy it. Take the little bitter with the sweet. Get over it.
Now, I can tell you that we've been standing out here for about 15 minutes, and the sun really has been the saving grace. Now, tonight, you can expect to see temperatures drop into the 20s and 30s once again. So it will be another cold and chilly night. You want to make sure that you dress for the weather. And we're also told that there is a freeze warning that will go into effect and will last until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. At the New Carrollton Metro Station, I'm Sonia Shrivastava. Back to you.
Also, if you have any plants out there that don't do well with frost, it's a good idea to cover them with a plastic bag or bring them inside or with a blanket.
I
even.
don't care what that man says. I like the hot
I do.
weather.
Yeah, and not only has it been cold, it's been windy.
Exactly.
Well, and you're watching CTV News. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Denise Douglas.